But no matter how hard you try, whenever something happens, in the moment you find yourself raising your voice or reacting harshly. If you're snapping regularly, there's a loop going on. The emotions you don't feel safe to feel go unprocessed and get stuck in your body. The aim isn't to get rid of the feeling or let it go. It's just to let it be what it needs to be. Do you ever snap over something that shouldn't matter that much? In this episode, I'm going to explain why you snap at the smallest things and give you some concrete steps to change how you react. Your partner left their dirty plate on top of the dishwasher again. Your kids have been so loud when all you want to do is relax after a hard day at work. And your co-worker hasn't listened to that thing that you've told them 100 times. And in a split second, you're angry, you've yelled, or you've used your "are you an idiot" voice. It feels immediate, almost instinctual, like your body's reacting before who you want to be has a chance to catch up. And you instantly regret it. You've reacted out of proportion to what actually happened, and you know it. You already know it's not really about the dishes or the kids or, as much as you hate to admit it, your hopeless co-worker. That's what makes it so frustrating. The reaction always feels way bigger than what actually happened. You don't want to be that kind of person, that kind of parent, that kind of partner, that kind of boss. On reflection, you tell yourself to just stay calm, to let things go, to not overreact. And you remind yourself that they're not that big a deal. But no matter how hard you try, whenever something happens, in the moment you find yourself raising your voice or reacting harshly. You may even feel it happening and know it's not right, but you just can't seem to stop it. What makes it worse is that the snapping doesn't actually resolve anything. You still beat yourself up over the reason you got angry and how you reacted. You hurt the people that you love, and it doesn't actually change the reason you snapped in the first place. You want to be better. You want to be able to control your emotions rather than letting them control you. You want to speak with kindness, even when you're frustrated. You aren't just a horrible person. There's a reason why you're reacting this way. And you're right, it isn't actually about what happened when you snapped. If you're like most people, your solution to this has been to beat yourself up so hard that you never do it again. You feel embarrassed for how you reacted, guilty at hurting them, and angry at yourself for losing control. But how did that work out? You've also possibly tried one of the following solutions. Maybe you've just tried to let things go, let them slide more. You've practiced gratitude, because if you're more grateful for what that person does for you, you wouldn't snap, right? You've done professional development courses to improve your communication skills, better manage your stress, and give more effective feedback. You've tried to notice and build awareness of the patterns that make you snap. You might have even worked through it all in talk therapy and understand all the reasons why. And you've probably been told to create some space, take 3 seconds and breathe before you react. If it was as easy as that, you would have stopped already. But you're still snapping, especially when there's a lot going on or you're feeling really tired. If this is you, drop a like so I can see I'm on the right track. If you look at all these solutions, they really fall into 2 buckets. Suppressing the feelings that come up or creating awareness so you can manage how you react next time around. But neither work. Emotional suppression is never healthy. It will only lead to more snapping because what's causing it hasn't been resolved. You might be able to manage your reactions for a while, but at some point you're going to blow up completely and let out all the emotion that you've been suppressing in unhealthier ways. Sound familiar at all? And awareness is only an effective tool when you have the ability to manage your subconscious instinctual reaction before you react. This only happens when your nervous system isn't overloaded and always on the brink of overreacting. And if you're snapping at small things, your nervous system is definitely overloaded. There is a solution to snapping. It's taking away the emotional charge that causes a snap. And it's not just another way for you to manage it. If it's done properly, the snapping will completely stop. So how do you stop yourself from reacting and snapping so quickly? You might think that stopping snapping at small things is all about managing anger, but it's actually a lot more about what you haven't felt than managing the anger that you have felt. Before I explain why you're snapping like this, I want to clear something up. This isn't about never being angry. and it definitely isn't about staying calm all the time. Anger is sometimes needed. If you or someone else are being treated poorly, continually let down, threatened, hurt, or disrespected, then anger is a completely valid response. What's important is to express it in a healthy way. That might look like setting clear boundaries, taking away privileges, speaking out against bad or unsafe behaviour, or removing yourself from situations that are bad for you. Healthy anger can still be a strong reaction that's in proportion to what happened. So what I'm going to focus on in this episode is the snapping. The anger that causes an immediate, harsh reaction that's out of proportion to what actually happened. Most of the time when you snap at something small, it's not about what happened. The anger, the snapping, it's just the symptom. It's the canary in the coal mine. It's a signal that something deep is going on. An overloaded nervous system or a deeper emotion that anger is covering for. And what I'll show you is that these two things are often related. Snapping at minor things normally happens when your nervous system is overloaded, or as I call it, stuck in survival mode. It's a survival adaptation, and there's lots of different ways that your nervous system gets stuck this way. Trauma, chronic stress, and chronic emotional suppression being the most common. Either through one large event or through continual smaller events, your nervous system's triggered the fight, flight, or freeze response. Your body gets flooded with stress hormones and prepares to react. But when you can't react because it would be unsafe, or you don't react because you don't want to feel that way, you feel you need to stay strong, you feel like you need to keep everyone else happy, or you feel like how you feel doesn't actually matter, that emotional nervous system response goes unresolved and unprocessed. Whatever the reason, the outcome will be similar. Over time, everything that you haven't processed keeps your nervous system in a state where it's always on, reacting to everything as a threat. Survival mode. So when you're faced with something mildly annoying, slightly frustrating, or even inconvenient, it doesn't take much to top your nervous system up and kick it back into a fight response. Which is why before you know it, you've snapped at something that alone shouldn't have caused that reaction. Your reaction really is subconscious and instinctual, which is why it's so hard to stop. I recently worked with a client who was struggling with this exact issue. They were trying to be a good parent, but they'd become, in their own words, a grumpy prick. They were losing it at their kids over the smallest things, and they were taking all of that grumpiness into the rest of their life as well. I could see how tense they were when they walked into their first session. Why were they losing it constantly? It wasn't that their kids had done anything super bad. It was because their nervous system was still reacting to things that had happened years ago. The births of their kids had been super traumatic, and they felt like they'd had to stay really strong and look after everyone else. They hadn't been able to actually feel how terrifying it all was, so they held on to that fear. They were stuck in fight mode, constantly on edge and scanning for the next threat. When the kids did something that they hadn't been able to control, they would immediately snap. When in hindsight, what had happened really wasn't a big deal. Once I helped them to feel and let go of that fear, it immediately took their nervous system down a notch. I could see how much more relaxed they were. And after one session, they were much less reactive to everything that their kids did. Based on the things you react to, you think the anger is really random, but it isn't. The type of anger that most of us know is generally a second reaction. You're not actually reacting to what just happened. You're reacting to something deeper. You're reacting to what it means about who you are. It's a quick protective reaction to hide deeper, more vulnerable feelings that you don't want to feel. Or more accurately, you don't feel safe to feel. Things like feeling unappreciated at work or home, feeling overlooked or unheard, feeling embarrassed or like you aren't good enough, carrying more than your share without support or relief, constantly suppressing your feelings around things that matter to you, or sometimes feeling like you aren't doing enough. And the deeper emotions behind all of these are worthlessness, guilt, sadness, resentment, and hopelessness. They're the things that you don't want to admit to yourself, and you definitely don't want to feel them. You've probably spent years avoiding these emotions, suppressing them, just pushing through. They hurt. Maybe they remind you of something horrible that happened to you, or they prove what other people think of you, or what you think of yourself. Often they were feelings that nobody allowed you to express. You don't feel safe to feel them, and your nervous system definitely sees them as a threat. So your brain reacts and uses anger to protect you from them. So you feel like you still have some control over the situation. Anger is easy to express. It's fast, it's loud, it gives you some power in the moment. You feel like you're doing something, standing up for yourself and expressing what you need. Feels like you're getting the dishes in the dishwasher without having to do it yourself. Your kids are quiet, and your co-worker will think twice before asking another stupid question. But all you're doing is reacting and repressing something else that you need to feel. And this is where a nervous system in survival mode and anger as a secondary emotion intersect. If you're snapping regularly, there's a loop going on. The emotions you don't feel safe to feel go unprocessed and get stuck in your body. Over time, the layers of emotion that you haven't processed create a state where your nervous system's always on, survival mode. So when those emotions come up again, they're covered by anger, which means they aren't properly resolved again, and on and on. So next time that you snap, don't ask yourself why you're angry. Ask yourself, what's the deeper emotion that I don't want to feel? If this has really opened up your eyes, then please subscribe. Every episode, I'll go deeper into the ways that people get stuck like this and how to get out of it. And if you want to understand more about survival mode, download my survival mode quiz. It'll help you understand how emotionally stuck you are and deliver a personal strategy to improve your mental health and start feeling like yourself again. The link's down below. Before I go on, I want to just mention that there are other reasons why people might snap. For some people, it's a reaction to sensory overload. For some people, it's how they learn to express their emotions from their family. However, I do believe that the reasons I've outlined are actually the most common. Now you understand the why, I can help you understand how to stop. And it's all about letting yourself feel what you haven't felt safe to feel, in a safe way, what I call emotional safety. I've already explained how when you don't feel something, it goes unprocessed. And it's this unresolved emotion that stays in your nervous system and keeps it in a state where it sees everything as a threat. Your body's really good at processing emotion. It's designed to take everything in, create a reaction that will keep you safe, process it and let it go. And in the context that we're talking about here, this isn't just about allowing yourself to be angry once you've already snapped. It's about feeling all the other things that you don't want to. And I can hear you saying that's easier said than done. And I agree. When your nervous system's stuck in survival mode, it's not easy. But it can be done with some practice and the right support. So how do you stop snapping? Let me give you some concrete steps to get you on the right track. In an ideal world, you'd be able to recognize that you're being triggered and you'd be able to pause. In that pause, you could recognize what's going on and respond in a healthy way. But this isn't where you're at right now. So let's have that as an aspirational goal. You can definitely get there, just not today. For today's purposes, let's assume you've already snapped and hopefully you've already apologized. So step one, this is where I just want you to pause before you start going into a shame or guilt spiral. As soon as you can, just want you to give yourself a few moments. Just want you to ask yourself what's really going on here. This isn't about building a story about what they did to make you snap. Because what they did might have been really annoying, but it's unlikely to be the real reason you snapped. And I want you to go deeper than I'm just tired today or I'm feeling really stressed at the moment because I've got a lot going on. If you stay out of your stories for long enough, you'll find something deeper. For snapping over the dirty plate being left on top of the dishwasher, could be something like, I feel like I have to do everything myself, or I feel like I'm being taken for granted. For snapping when the kids are being loud, it could be something like, my time isn't important, or no one appreciates how hard I work. For your teammate who doesn't listen, it might be something like, I feel like my time is being wasted, or I'm disrespected. A deeper feeling than being angry will always come up if you give yourself the time. Now I want you to write that deeper feeling down for later, okay? This step's about building awareness, and over time you'll see patterns behind the ways that you react. But awareness alone doesn't heal your nervous system. Being aware and seeing a pattern are very different to processing emotion. So step 2 is that we're going to process that feeling for a few minutes. I want you to find a place where you feel safe, somewhere quiet where you won't be interrupted. And if that's not possible right now, please come back to this at a later time. I want you to get comfortable, sitting, laying down, it doesn't matter. Now I just want you to breathe for 30 seconds. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Try to let go of the thoughts in your head. Leave the day behind. You've got nothing to do and nowhere to be right now. Now I want you to get curious about what's going on in your body. I want you to look for sensations. Could be anything. Tightness, aching, swirling, tingling, warmth. I don't want you to go searching for anything particular. I just want you to see what's there. And take your time. There might not be anything obvious there at first. Once you've found some sensations in your body, I want you to say that feeling that you wrote down out loud. If you can't do that, say it to yourself in your head. But out loud is definitely best. I have to do everything myself. I feel disrespected. Whatever you feel. And I want you to say it 3 or more times. I have to do everything myself. I feel disrespected. And as you do, notice what happens to those sensations in your body. They should start to feel stronger. Keep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Stay focused on the sensations and how you feel. And then I want you to just let it be what it needs to be. And I want you to just let it be what it needs to be. Your body knows what it needs to do. Your job is just to not question it. You might cry. You might need to grab a pillow and scream into it. The tightness might get tighter. Or you might just feel numb. Let the sensation in your body build. It might get a bit uncomfortable. The aim isn't to get rid of the feeling or let it go. It's just to let it be what it needs to be. Let it build if it needs to. Hold the feeling for as long as you can. The more you can just sit there and be uncomfortable and feel, the more your body will process that feeling. Eventually the feeling will subside on its own. The sensations in your body will reduce. And if that hasn't happened yet, stay in the feeling until it does. Pause this video and come back to it later on. Now I want you to keep breathing. Just get really curious about how your body's feeling again. You might notice that your breathing feels easier. The ache's gone, or there's less tension in your shoulders and jaw. You might feel calmer. And you might notice that when you think about the feeling that you wrote down, it doesn't feel as strong anymore. It might feel like you've created a bit of distance from it. You're noticing what happens when your body processes an emotion. It resolves it and lets it go. If you weren't able to find sensations in your body or you didn't notice a big change after the practice, that doesn't mean that this won't work for you. This isn't something that we're taught to do, and it's not something that we practice regularly. All it means is that you need to keep practicing or ask for some help. What you've done in the last few minutes is created some emotional safety for yourself. You noticed the feeling. You noticed that it didn't hurt you. And in fact, it actually helped you feel better. And you started to let it go. Imagine how good it would feel if you practiced this every time that you snapped. Or even better, every time a strong emotion came up. There is a step 3 though. What you've done here is feel one emotion fully. But if you're snapping, there's years worth of these feelings that have put your nervous system into survival mode. And even more importantly, most of your reactions are subconscious. It's been estimated that over 90% of your emotions happen subconsciously in your body. Your subconscious is a behind-the-scenes autopilot that handles most of your thinking and emotions. So what does that mean? Well, that exercise that we just did started with building awareness of the reason behind your snapping. And the problem is that you're only aware of what you're aware of. That sounds a bit stupid, but just let it sink in for a moment. Awareness is conscious. So if 90% of what happens is subconscious, your awareness is only the tip of the iceberg. I can guarantee that underneath what you know you felt, there'll be an even deeper core emotion. I have to do everything myself might be I'm only loved when I'm productive. No one gets how hard I work could actually be I feel worthless. And I feel like my time's being wasted. Might actually be I don't feel good enough. These core emotions will be the deep root cause of what's causing that instinctual snapping reaction. To clear that emotion, you need someone that can help you work through layer by layer. Clear what you're aware of and also what's in your subconscious. Processing and releasing your deep emotional blocks. This is how I support you in a one-on-one deep emotional block release session. The details of how to book are down below. If this is all making sense, then I want you to know that this isn't just something I've read about in a book. I've created lasting change for myself and for my clients using the deep emotional block release process. Hi, I'm Todd, and I used to be a snapper. It does run in my family, but there's actually a deeper reason behind why I used to snap. I used to get really angry at work. There are all sorts of reasons behind it. Stress, lack of support, workload, decisions that I didn't agree with, things that went wrong, and yes, stupid co-workers that just never listened. The list was endless. Sometimes I'd snap or be rude at work, but more often than not, I just bought it home and my partner copped it. A simple question like, have you put the bins out yet, would get an angry response. If something broke around the house or wasn't working how it should, I'd completely lose my mind. I generally feel really stupid after, but I was also really good at blaming the person that I snapped at for how I reacted. I didn't want to be that way. I tried to change, but I was relying on somehow being able to stop myself, when in reality, the deeper reason why I was snapping hadn't actually changed. I didn't have the tools to change until I did my first emotional healing session. I've been doing talk therapy for years, and I was really aware of a lot of the reasons why I snapped the way I did, but I wasn't actually aware of the deeper subconscious reason, which was that I just didn't feel good enough. My anger and my snapping were just reactions to that deeper feeling. And I was reacting when I thought that someone else didn't think I was good enough. Once I was guided through feeling and processing that deep emotional block, I felt so much calmer. I was able to let more things go, and it gave me the emotional space to question why I was about to react in the way that I was. I can't say that I've never snapped again. I am still human, but it's 98% less than what it used to be. I want to also tell you about a client that I've worked with a lot. I saw them as a successful business person that had their life together and seemed so much more chilled and carefree than what I was. But underneath their outward appearance, they were actually worried that they would lose control and start throwing things and screaming. They were on the verge of snapping a lot at home, and they'd become really disconnected from their partner and their children. They put it down to having a lot going on between the business and the kids, not having enough time to themselves to relax and recharge. And that was absolutely true. But the deeper reason behind why they were on the verge of snapping was that they'd never actually felt like they could be themselves. And they'd never been allowed to show their feelings. They'd spent their whole life comparing their success to other people and feeling that they had to behave in a certain way to be accepted. There was no room for the silly, quirky person underneath. And they'd been holding so much in, they were about to explode. I supported them through actually feeling a few emotions instead of shutting them down. And over a few sessions, the change was amazing. The feeling of pressure and overwhelm that made them feel like they were going to explode was gone. They felt safe to take a step back from their business, and they had the emotional capacity to really build a beautiful connection with their children. But best of all, they actually felt like they could be themselves for the first time in their life. I've worked with people who had to constantly bite their tongue at work so they didn't say something that would lose their job. Self-described grumpy pricks and shit dads, and partners who were told they needed to go to anger management. All their reasons for snapping were different, and the changes that they made to their lives after dealing with their deep emotional blocks were all incredible. They weren't just managing their snapping, they left it behind. These are the type of results you could expect as well if you wanted to work through the reasons behind your snapping with me. The person that snaps at the smallest things isn't the person that you want to be. You don't want to hurt people, and you're tired of feeling guilty and embarrassed when you do. You aren't a horrible person. You wouldn't have paid attention for this long if you were. There's absolutely no reason to react in the way that you do and to feel the way that you do. Now that you know that there's a way that you can change, you really owe it to yourself and to the people that you love to do something about it. Instead of feeling guilty and ashamed, you can feel proud. You can feel calmer and build the capacity to react with kindness, even when frustrating things happen. Deep emotional block release works. It's a fix. It's not just managing or masking the problem. If you really want to, you can remove the reason that you snap completely. If you aren't convinced already, it's actually a lot more to survival mode than just snapping. I'm sure that as well as being emotionally reactive, you're probably also exhausted. You might have headaches, neck pain or back pain, lingering illnesses, and your mental health will be suffering. I'll guess you aren't loving life right now and you don't feel like yourself anymore. My Successful but Dead Inside podcast will help you understand why. It'll be here in the Heal to Last episode list. But if you're honest with yourself, you already know that this is what you need. So the question isn't really whether this makes sense. It's actually whether you're going to keep putting up with it or actually do something about it and stop surviving and start thriving. The link to book a one-on-one deep emotional block release session with me is down below. And before you go, don't forget to download my survival mode quiz. It'll help you to understand how emotionally stuck you are and deliver you a personalised strategy to help improve your mental health and start feeling like yourself again. See you on the next episode of Heal to Last.